Welcome back, everyone, to Random's Thoughts, Mythgard Melee Edition. So, we're jumping into a recent ladder game that I played with Green-Purple Spirits versus Blue-Orange Rainbow. This is actually a matchup that I've been pretty excited to test, so it was fortunate that I queued into it on ladder. Why was I excited to test it? Well, I've been very high on trying to run Green-Purple Spirits in the upcoming Open. However, Blue-Orange Rainbow has been a thorn in my side on the ladder from a number of different pilots, and I've been told by the Blue-Orange Rainbow pilots that they feel that Green-Purple Spirits is a bad matchup. I don't really agree, but we're going to take a look at this match, break it down, see if we can spot where I could try and improve my lines in play, and maybe I'm just playing it wrong, and that is the reason that I've been having so much difficulty. Here, we're going to be going first into the rainbow deck. As you can see, there's a coin in our opponent's opener, and because of the informant, I can feel a little bit easier talking about their opening hand. Now, this, in conjunction with this, are problematic. The Stormseer and the Desertification Engine both present localized lockdown on the board. It's going to be very difficult to push damage through combat because the Desertification Engine is, on the back end at least, enormous. And the Stormseer naturally is just going to wipe the board clean when it gets played. Sure, it might cost triple blue gems, but that's not necessarily that difficult for this deck, as we've seen in previous recordings, or anybody out there who's played this, played against it, or with it. Not necessarily that difficult to achieve. Or even if it has to wait a turn, so it's turn 4, and you get it online and play something else. It doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal to make these things happen. So, our opener's okay. We do have triple Moth Mara. It's a little weird. We do have marching orders, which I thought was going to be pretty important. We got to be able to push some of the things, such as the Stormseer, which although I didn't know it was there yet, it is something that you can expect out of this build. Plus, we just need to be able to scrape up every point of damage that we humanly can, because past a certain point, the board will be gummed up from our opponent's side, because they're just going to have manchantments filling up a bunch of lanes and or regular bodies, on top of the fact that they're going to present us with the ever-present Toot-based death, which is, of course, Allfather's Horn. Once the game reaches a certain threshold, we've all but lost officially. So, I was excited to see the prayer wheel in our opening hand, but I'm not clear on whether we needed to play it when we did. As you'd expect, I want to play this as early as possible so that I can get the maximum value out of playing all these other spirits, and the future ones will draw. The problem is that we do take a turn off doing quote-unquote nothing. So we'll see what options we had or lines that we could have taken instead. I'm leading off with the informant, of course, so we can see our opponent's hand. The information is invaluable, and it's important mostly to look for things. Do they have a Thunderclap? Do they have a Magnus? In this case, I see two ways that they're going to lock down the board, and I'm not super thrilled. On top of it, our opponent coins out Ghoul, which means that we're, right off the bat, unable to really progress damage-wise. So, at this stage, I had a couple decisions for burning. I didn't feel compelled to remove the Ghoul. Maybe we should have, but the Racer got burned in favor of playing the Prayer Wheel and allowing for the Yokai later. I felt we need out-of-hand damage. We'll say direct damage. It's just burn in this particular case, the Yokai and the Prayer Wheel. But we needed other ways to push damage that were not combat-based because I didn't think we were going to really get there. Now, this is where things really started to look south. And why is that? It's just a pyre. Well, like we talked about, our opponent now has these 3 lanes and these 3 lanes locked down, basically only the middle lane, and we're kind of in trouble. So why did I place in this position? I felt we needed to ensure that we're continuing to play threats, we're getting value out of the, well, not value, but we're getting damage out of the prayer wheel, and I'm hoping that the Moth Mara will survive. Obviously, the informant was not going to. It should not, for the record, have been blocking this. We're offering it up as a sacrifice. We should have played it over here for the Ghoul. There was nothing in, or excuse me, there was an informant in the graveyard, the old one. However, if Unscathed is going to waste time doing that, that means that they're not advancing something else this turn, unless it was a replaced enchantment. And I think that would have been better, but we made a mistake. So here the Desertification comes down. We're, of course, losing durability on the prayer wheel. And here's where things start to get exceptionally unfortunate. So I wanted to remove this. We screwed up already. The ghoul is going to be able to eat the yokai and move on. We play the second Mothmara. We're kind of hoping that our opponent makes a mistake here, but that's just realistically not going to happen. So this moves over. The Stormseer clears both of these. There was no need, for the record, mistakes again, there was no need to move this Mothmara. One of these Mothmaras was going to die, and only one of these Mothmaras. So this Stormseer would have only killed the yokai and demanded that the ghoul trade into it, which probably would have happened. There was no need to move it because it didn't benefit us in any way, I don't believe. But realistically, the same scenario is happening here. We're going to end up getting our board cleared, and there's not much we can do about it. So now we're in the unenviable position of staring down 3 threats on the board, an exposed prayer wheel, and really not much to do about it. So I elect to do something weird here. This is the weird thing. We marching order everything away and play the yokai away from this. I did not believe that we would be able to truly fight these. We can't fight through them. We could have played the yokai, say, or left the desertification over here somewhere and then played the yokai, mantled it up like we're going to try and get there. Alternatively, we could have marching ordered and played this thing over here and then dealt 3 damage. I didn't want it anywhere near the Stormseer or being fragile by the field because it would have just died. And I felt we needed to take a gamble, hope that our opponent didn't have much that could be done, although we knew they had, say, this. And then that way we could push damage with the yokai, maybe turn things around the next turn. I don't believe that any of those would have made a significant difference. Now, what ends up happening here is we just lose the game on the spot because a bunch of enchantment replacements, they're able to crack the prayer wheel. We are now behind in the damage race with a sizable board. There's just basically nothing we can do. So from here, we're going to zap. We move the yokai. We're blocking. There's nothing that can get us out of this hole. Even if what happens on this turn doesn't happen, we're still dead just from a board position perspective. So Unscathed is able to ramp into the horn. This is turn 6, but it's with 5 mana, air quotes. And then just annihilate us from here. Again, in my opinion, there were multiple misplays on our side. Do they make a significant difference here? I would say no. I don't believe that this is a very good matchup for Spirits. I think there are scenarios in which you can catch the Rainbow player, I guess, unaware or unprepared, or just with an awkward hand, and therefore you can run them over. You're a burn deck, an aggressive deck, even if you're not truly aggro, and therefore you can then, as mentioned, run your opponent over and take the W. But I think overall, this seems to favor, in my experience, the Rainbow deck. You typically cannot present threats, certainly not ones that get through enough. You might be able to push a little bit of damage early on. So if you go second, you may be able to present 2 threats, say a Vodnik and then the Mantle, or a mantled up Vodnik, and your opponent just does not have the Pyre on 2. I think a lot of it revolves around, are they able to contest your early game via Pyres, via Stormseers, that's the wrong card, Stormseers, via Desertification Engine, whatever their early game happens to be in the particular flavor or tweak of that build. If they're able to contest your board, I am not clear on how you win. Short of them making an egregious error and allowing you to linger, as you can see, we got our opponent down to 11. So if our Rainbow opponent was able to leave a bunch of minions up and we can call from the grave into a yokai, into playing another yokai, okay, we just tag you for a bunch of out-of-combat damage and end the game. It's possible that those sort of things can happen, but I feel as though that necessitates much more falling into place in favor of the Spirits player than the Rainbow player, hence why, in my opinion, it's favored for the Rainbow player. You can certainly win, but I think you need a lot of things to come together before that's a realistic possibility. So those are my thoughts on this so far. I'm going to obviously be playing more games as we get closer to the Open, trying to prepare. I'd still like to bring Spirits, but we'll see if this manages to work out. So that'll do it for this time. As always, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And Black Lives Matter.